right, so I'm going to bring this material up using my gas forge. I have the equipment. I want a real thorough heat, so I'm going to be heating this inside the forge. And when I get to that temperature, I'll bring it out, set it on my anvil on a fire brick, let it air cool, and I'll do that 3 times. Quick thing about gas forges, if you don't know, turn the air on first. If it's forced air, lighter, gas. Let's do this. So quick note, when you guys are watching stuff on YouTube, don't use the camera to calibrate your colors. This is a low red in real life. That looks like a low orange on the camera. So be really careful when you watch people heat treat. Don't calibrate for their camera on your monitor. There's a whole color profiles. So anyways, why am I putting it on the fire brick? I'm putting it on the fire brick because the fire brick is acting as an insulator. My anvil would be a heat sink. It would be pulling the heat out of the material quicker than I wanted and on one side. So put it on some fire brick, some K-wool, anything to help. This one we're normalizing. So we're bringing it up to that red temperature that it's asking for, letting it expand and then air cool. I'm not blasting it with air. In my opinion, air blasting is way too aggressive. I have a big piece of D2 that I air blasted and totally trashed it. Another thing to keep in mind is different tool steels for normalizing have different temperatures. S7 range from 1450 to 1700. You know, meanwhile this guy, we're at 1600. So I will let this get cold enough to touch and then do it 2 more times. It will be fully normalized. So when we're talking about annealing, we're talking about slowing down the heat super slow. Some people use K-wool. We have vermiculite. It feels like cork. It's really light. It's a super insulator. I'm gonna make sure Craig didn't put anything in here. Sometimes we find stuff in here somebody forgot. If I was going to anneal this and make it as soft as possible, for this material, be 1500 degrees, that'd be a red, and I would do the whole thing, put it in here as deep as possible, and then bury it and leave it. Most time I leave it overnight. And depending on the tool, and depending if there's any movement, like when I've done axes and blades, material has curled. So it's to me, it's telling me that the grain is moving and the material is reacting, and I keep annealing until the movement is stopped. Usually it's 3 times. But something like this, I would anneal it once, and then overnight come back, grab it, and then forge it, normalize it, and continue on. But just to show you, this is vermiculite, but it's pretty affordable. It's pretty safe. The K-wool is a little dangerous, a little cancerous. It's been normalized. We went through that stuff. Go ahead and forge the tip. Again, we're doing a cold chisel, so the tip's going to be pretty blunt, pretty aggressive, and taking advantage of the toughness of the steel and having the mass behind it. If we forge this pretty thin and we're trying to do a lot of hot work, maybe we're trying to get a little aggressive on some cold working stuff, there's a chance it could work harder and break. So we want to take advantage of how tough this is and the thickness of the 3/4 inch material here. Forge this stuff in the upper oranges and yellows, get below that and get in the reds. Don't forge it anymore. We don't want it to work harder and crack and cause more problems. Same thing, don't get it so hot it's falling apart. It's still steel. It'll react just how the mild steel does. The more thorough you are in your heats with the oranges and yellows, the easier the stuff will move. It is tough. So just a quick thought about tool steels, especially if you're losing your control of your heat. I would not quench it at all. If it's too hot, let it air cool. All right, so one-sided, very abrupt, flat taper. It gets that fanning out. That's a preference. If you want a shape of that, that is up to you to decide. On this tutorial, I don't. So Real life, again, don't calibrate your colors on what you see on through your monitor or screen or your phone. Get into those low oranges. Got my rough forging done. Back in the fire. Now you can ruin tool steel. You can't get it too hot. Make it fall apart. Making sure it's square. Alright, you see this fang I have coming up? I'm going to let the air cool. I'm going to correct that with the grinder and straighten that up. The whole point of it is I don't want to harden it now and then cut it with the grinder and go through all this stuff. I get the rough forging done, and then from there I can use hand tools, power tools to finish dressing this up. Grind off, and I'm going to straighten this up. So after I get this rough shape, I'm going to be really thorough. I would anneal this in the vermiculite, come back to it tomorrow, but we're going to normalize it. This is where the debate happens of stuff, of the order and how thorough. The more thorough you are, the better results you will have. Now all of these tight little corners, we don't want those, because when this hardens, those could turn into cracks and fissures, and all that energy of everything coming together could cause a problem. You can get a crack running because of that. Prior to any of the hardening, I'm going to soften these edges up a little bit. Okay, so it has been forged. Hard edges are taken away. If you want to, you could anneal it. I'm going to normalize mine, and then we'll harden it. All right, so we are annealing low reds. Again, it's very controversial, I know. And a lot of people get very passionate about this. Some guys try to take one concept and apply it to all the tool steels. And that concept is heat to non-magnetic and then quench in oil. I was told this when I was 8. I had taken some ball peen hammers and made axes out of them, some hatchets. And this guy sat me down and like had this big thing about this is the way you do it. And to find out, a lot of the ball peen hammers are a W1, W2 series, and really isn't the proper way to heat treat such a tool. So I'm hesitant to say this is the way you heat treat and you use a magnet to find it. Some of the alloys, yeah, that is a good way to do it, but all of them, no. They're very different. H13 is a good example. Its hardening temperature, I believe, is like 1850, but it loses its magnetism at 1400 degrees. It's a big difference between the two temperatures. Things that could happen if you quench something that's too hot, it could get way too brittle and really fall apart. And when you forge, and when you strike an end and something's that brittle and that hard because all those molecules are all fat and happy, whee, and then you them down like that, things can bust off and turn into shrapnel. Flying to yourself, flying to your dog, flying to your friends, a hot piece of metal flying to a wall or something like that. So really be careful when you're heat treating and just do the research. If you don't know what kind of tool steel this is, start developing a kit. Have little samples, and then you can take a grinder and you can apply the same amount of pressure on the steel that's known, compare it to the tool steel that you found, and see how it performs. Probably the easiest way in to study the sparks. What do the tails look like? What do the stars look like on the points? And really compare it. And the more observant you are, the better you'll do in being able to treat the material. If you really don't know, maybe make a test and quench one. You know, if it acts like a certain alloy, but you don't know if it's a water or a oil, we'll quench one in water, quench one in oil, and see how they do. You know, pay attention to it and make this a learning thing, not just well, I followed A, B, and C and it should do this. This is about you paying attention to the material and you being the smith so you know what you're doing, instead of just blaming on some stupid website or some Facebook forum and the guy said he heated a non-magnetic and you ended up hurting yourself. So again, be careful, be aware, be safe. I don't want anybody emailing me and sending me a picture with one eye and telling me that it went horribly wrong. That would be terrible. I would hate that. Of course not. There's your safety rant. Be safe. Stay in school. Don't do drugs. All right. We're going to harden this material And I got it in the forge right now. It needs to be in the upper reds. One thing I want to talk about, plastic buckets in oil are not good. Plastic melts about 300, 400 degrees. Your oil can exceed that. I had a bucket fall apart on me. I wanted to use this as an example. Don't use plastic buckets. You can use a metal bucket, something that's a lot safer. What happened was it melted in the middle and then oil popped out. It melted, oil popped out. It was like a cartoon. Literally the whole bucket just collapsed all the way down. All right, so we are at the upper reds. Even though it looks a little hotter in the camera, this is motor oil. It's gonna smoke. I'm doing figure eights, and I'm doing figure eights because of the steam jacket that happens around it. If you just do circles, you could have a shadow of coolness or a shadow of material that's not getting cool. So do figure eights. For those guys who are like, why are you using a plastic bucket then? Well, honestly, one was to get the example. It was clean, it was white, you could see it. And two, it's actually the only bucket I have available right now. I don't have a metal bucket. If you are using a plastic bucket, mindful of the sides, don't touch the sides. The metal can poke a hole in it. Don't touch the bottom. Really respect that plastic. Don't stick like a power hammer die in here, because that oil will get really hot and then melt the plastic bucket. So if you can, at all costs, get a metal bucket, something that will hold that. Things that I look for when I am hardening tool steel, if I was in the right temperature, is I'm looking at the scale popped. You see the little specks that had popped off? Like all this right here. So I know I was right in the right range. And that's a common thing Mr. Gunter had taught us about hardening material. A characteristic he always found was that the scale typically popped. So to me, in the experience I have and the tools that I have hardened, I was right there. So I'm going to do that 2 more times. I want a real thorough hardness in this guy. Back in the fire. We're in the reds. Another thing to keep in mind while you're preparing your tool steel is obviously the treatment's going to happen where the heat's at. The thing could be hard all the way through, a lot more than we need to. We can control the working end that we want hard. So this is where all the abuse is happening when we are using it. This guy can be tough and the striking end can be soft. There's no reason to get 6 inches of this at that red heat for this material to harden. I'm only heating up about 1.5 inches here. And even that's a little generous. I could probably get away with 1 inch. I would rather have this bend than break. So I don't want it breaking here. I want all the action to happen up here. So that was harden number 2. And I know the non-magnetic thing's probably going to get a lot of attention and a lot of guys upset or intimidated. Again, this is my professional job. This is how we heat treat the tools that we do for work that we do. So harden number 3. Now you can feel the hardness with a file. We'll go to the vise. We'll show you how you can hear and feel that. So after we harden something, you might see guys who use a file to see what it feels like. And what you're feeling for is a skiddy. You hear that sharp? I mean, that thing is sliding right off of that. Actually, you know what? I want you to see this. So let's get a good money shot. Maybe I was in the wrong industry. Maybe I should have made dirty movies. That's for another day. So anyways, we want a nice, you hear that? And it's just sliding right off, especially the back. Now if we come to the other side, you can hear it. It's taking away more material, even on the flat. You hear that different tone? It's a little bit, kind of sounds like wood, but you can also feel it. You can just, the material is just going away. I'm hardly putting any pressure on it. So when you're testing stuff to see how hard it is, you can do that with a file. I mean, that slides right off. A little bit deeper base. And literally the metal is just coming off. You can feel it. That to me is telling me that's pretty soft. This, that's really hard, which is good. That tells me at least I got that part, you know? Because this bugs me, I'm just gonna go ahead and finish beveling this. Man, that's tough. Next thing we're gonna do is I need to polish this up because I want to take all these tight molecules that are just sitting there and they're just like, rah! Give you an example. I'm looking at my crappy file. In some cases, they're so hard that they get brittle. So like these skinny areas, but these break off. It's so hard that it's brittle. And it's like we don't back rasp on files because we can break the teeth off on here. Everything is you file and pick it up. You don't back rasp it, and you have to take care of these edges. This file, he's pretty old. He's done a good job. Keep that in mind. You know, just because it's really hard doesn't mean it's tough. Things can be so hard that they can be brittle. So I'm gonna polish this up just with a sander, nothing high quality. I think it's like a 60 grit or 80 grit. I need shiny so I can see the temper colors. Okay, that is all dolled up. Temper colors. Temper colors are the colorful blues and violets and yellows that you see. Sometimes you see it in knives. Sometimes you see it in people who don't know how to sharpen drill bits. It's best you can see them outside. Inside might be a little difficult, but we'll try it out. Look at that lazy bum back there. He don't care. He only cares if I have treats. Somebody needs a treat because they're hungry and they're ready to go. All right, back to the tutorial. Make this tough. Now that it's really hard, we're going to apply heat and let the temper colors run up. And whenever we get to that straw, I like the straw purples for this material on the working end, quench it in water. You get that to stop right there. So the heat's coming up, the grain is going from tight to ooh, and then shunk, you can stop it right there at the water. Water is fine. We get the tempering done, then you can do the final shape and edge of your chisel. Do a thorough temper, at least twice, and then you can sharpen the edge, but keep it cool. I do this with a torch. You could do this in the forge. You could put the back end in the forge and let the bar soak up the material that way. I'm going to use a torch for time's sake. But you can see I got it hot. We didn't harden this part. We just normalized this whole back end. We hardened this guy. So working within the forging temperatures, you can get that metal hot and let that heat run up. And in the time I've just been talking, we can see that this is slowly coming in. And you can see the yellows, the purples, the violets, the grays, and the steel. So we just want that to slowly grow up. If you have a hard time seeing your temper colors, it's probably because your lights. If you can do it outside, that's the best. The way I found the best way to see the colors is actually outside. And this is probably the most hardest part. It's being patient. Because I so badly just want to temper with the torch right there. Oh, okay, we're there, we're done. But we want to be thorough. We want to get that whole bar as thorough as possible. And a big part of that is just being patient. It's going to get hotter quicker. So as this gets closer to this tip, and once it gets up here, all that heat and all that energy is going to be running through this much quicker. So you need to be paying attention while you're going through this. So you can start seeing the temper colors are starting to spread out now. Now we have more of the straw yellow here. The purples are starting to separate. The blues are still there. I'm going to heat it up one more time, and then I'm just going to let it sit there. If you don't want to water quench it, at this point, you could always put the tip in the jaws of the vise and let the vise be a heat sink. and stop it that way, that's fine. Again, a lot of it's going to depend not only on the material that you're using, but the function for it. So for example, if I was going to use this material for hot work, which we have, for hot work, I would have probably 3 of these guys, and then the tempering, I would temper it, but it would be really subtle, it'd be really low, and that's because as soon as this starts touching the hot metal, I'm actually pulling a temper on it. So I can temper it while I'm using it, but I would be real safe. I wouldn't have the hardness come all the way through the whole tool. You know, the hardness would be real isolated, real local, and depending on the material that it's touching, if it's like real aggressive, you know, 1-inch bar, and I want to slit and drift with this, I would harden it, and then I would just go to work because that 1-inch bar would temper it for me. And I could probably get a couple more heats out of it. So you can see I'm there with the yellows. You can see my purples and my blues down here. I like that, and I'm going to quench it in the water right at that point. I got good straw color going on, and then the violets and the purples right behind it. That right there is pretty much the temper range. Now it would be putting an edge on it that I want, keeping it cool while I'm doing it so I'm not getting it hot, and then probably normalizing the striking end one more time. So almost done. We want a normalized end, nice and soft on the end. Don't burn it. Don't get too hot. Again, don't use the monitor to calibrate your colors. I don't want you sitting there with your arms folded going, Dirty Smith got that way too hot. You know, these subtleties with these low reds and oranges, our cameras are designed to pick up light and make things a little bit more and richer than they really are. So that looks like a low orange. It's actually, I can barely see it. It's red. And other guys are asking, how do you tell temperature? Well, I will show you. I have a cheat sheet. It's not really a cheat sheet. I printed these off. So I'll put these on dirtysmith.com soon, but I can read my temperature for the temper colors. And there's a lot more information as far as hardness, so we can ignore this right part. I'm mostly looking at temperatures and the color. So from 0 all the way down to 1,000 degrees. And then below that I have right by my forge. And again, this guy printed this off a nice photo paper. This is a couple years old. I need to get a new one. But again, we have a brown red, 1,110 degrees. Orange yellow, 1815. So we can use this and calibrate ourselves to read the steel so we know the colors associated with the temperatures. It's really that easy. And the more you do it, the better you get. You could get a gun, and you could get a shoot laser gun, and you could, how hot is that? And that's cool too. I wish I had one of those, but I don't. So I have these. So that was the complete process of how I heat treat. And in this situation for the cold chisel. Again, you know, those temper colors and the annealing process, the normalizing and heating, be patient, be thorough, be safe, really pay attention to the material. Want to follow me on social media? Pick your flavor at Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I don't have MySpace. Maybe I should go could bring MySpace back. Could be huge. Could be Dirty Space. Oh, don't search that. There's probably some Dirty Space already. If not, I'm buying that URL right now. Very special shout out and thank you to all the Patreon supporters, big and small. Thank you guys for all the love and support. Really says a lot, really means a lot. And I'm hoping to continue the tutorials and the projects, and they're more involved and more interesting. Again, if you want to be part of this, you can go to patreon.com, Dirty Smith. Until next time, keep it dirty. So anyways, the concept was I could demonstrate grain size with what we're doing. So the grain's gonna get small, like these little inefficient, stupid stickers.